wanted to make a video about some of the stuff going on in the world right now. It's quite disturbing. You know, the fact that they cut USAID and people are now dying because they can't get oxygen and they're being turned away in places in other countries where they could get that stuff with the aid of the richest country in the world, supposedly. And people are dying right now because of that particular cut. And after I realized that was happening, you know, I guess I really didn't think stuff like that would happen, and I didn't worry about it. But after it happened, I realized that these people voted on they premeditatedly voted on murder. Their vote was to murder people, plain and simple. And then you hear about food stamps, EBT, whatever you want to call it. It is literally a subsidies for farmers, and they shot themselves in the foot. Shit is dying. Just the crops, you know, they let them die and shit, and it's just kind of like they voted to take food out of people's mouths, mainly children for the most part. The most important, the developmental part of the part of their life that they develop in. They're being deprived of food. And you know, I look at that happening and I kind of wonder, like, do they do that on purpose? Do they take away school breakfasts and lunches and stuff like that, so they can literally mess people up in the head and make them not develop properly, so they're more easily pawns in their scheme? I mean, it's ridiculous. I now understand that people will literally use their vote, premeditated murder with their vote. You know, as bad as that is, and that actually being a real thing, you know, I'm sitting here watching Fox News and I'm hearing about the trans and what the Nazis went down into a black neighborhood and did, and what happened, and what's happening to a lot of immigrants right now and Spanish people. I put my third flag up. I've had the flag for months now. It's the trans black and brown matters flag. I've had it for a while. It's such a controversial thing, I just left it alone at the moment. But it really upsets me that Fox News sits there and pushes guns the way they do in legislation and tries to push all these narratives and plug all this stuff. And then they sit there and terrorize gay people, trans people, black people, Spanish people. I mean, it's literally, they are like in the kitchen, let's throw some guns in there and make all these laws so they're easy to get, and then let's put on our news and the shit we put out into the world, not just Fox, all the other ones too, which are complete bullshit. Let's put all this hate out there and put these crimes up with images of certain races of people and all that. So they're plugging the guns, making weak legislation on the control, and then they're creating hate and spewing hate and venom into the world, and then they're complaining about violence and crime that happens. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. You know, it's like that's what they do. That's what the narcissist does, the Republican does. They sit there and say shit and twist stories and mangle them, and then say all this shit's going on and to make other shit happen. I set out in a point in my life because I was so low that from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, I watched CNN, NBC, and Fox News for 3.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks I started cutting off, but 3.5 weeks I pretty much did that. I learned a lot. It took me to the point with Fox News that I went and looked up is there laws that allow media companies to lie on the air? Do they have to fact check what they actually put on the air? And they don't. They can just hear something and then put their spin on it and add their glitter to it and all that and put it out there. It's really messed up. And that's all the Republicans do. You know, it's like people get shut down on Twitter. The right, the Nazis, that's all they do. But I have learned that if I do the same shit that they do and they can have a bunch of views, they don't get shut down, but I get shut down. I see people that online get shut down. Yeah, it's because they're on the left or more on the left. It's a spectrum, kind of like being gay, you know? Yeah. That's why the liberal kind of fucks everything up. They are literally murdering people. They are defunding who? The World Health Organization. And I don't know if y'all don't know this, and I've seen stuff out there, MAGA saying, bring on the pandemic and shit, you know? There's a lot of us that are live right now because of the World Health Organization and other things like it. And to see them want to shut that down, it's a tool of genocide is what it is. Look at it. It's a tool of genocide. They cut USAID and people are now dying because it started with they can't get oxygen. It's murder. It's premeditated. And that being said, I watched a movie when I was younger. It was a controversial movie about Nazi Germany, and from what I understand, the only reason that it was ever released because an actor in it fought for the release of it, and fought for the release of it, and fought for the release of this movie. They weren't even going to do it after it was made. You know, when I see Trump say things, he who loves his country breaks no law, and what was in that movie and what's going on right now, there was a trans person who was tortured for a month. Held captive and tortured for a month. You people are sick. You are a virus, a disease. The ones who hate and do violence, you are the virus. You are the malware on Earth. It's just like light, the spectrum of light. It's a whole big spectrum. And all it is frequencies. Frequencies. Lower frequencies and higher frequencies. Our eyes are literally an array of antennas. There's a whole spectrum out there. Y'all go around acting like you, because you read a book, that's the way it is. You know what? I have more empirical evidence in the thin air in front of my face that we're fucking up the planet than you have that your God is real. Any God for that matter. You're the virus. You're the malware. You know, it's like, and I think part of the reason it happens is basically because code isn't, genes, DNA isn't diversified. You know, these people sit out in the woods and they sit there and convince themselves that black people belong in the fields because they're better in the sun. And they sit there and convince themselves of that shit. They won't let any new DNA into the gene pool, into the pool. And they sit out here and the same code sits there and they won't let anyone in. They run them off like a moccasin snake. I don't know about you, I've been chased by a moccasin before, so it's a pretty aggressive thing. Scary. You people are crazy. You know, the world kicked your asses 80 years ago, and we're most likely going to do it again. The thing is, people are already dying because they don't have oxygen. How many people have to die? And the sunset on the Trump tax cuts is 9. They need more money, and they will kill to do it. And by cutting USAID, they have already killed people that can't get oxygen. And they're going to cut who? The NOAA, the weather, and put that shit in their fucking pockets. And they're probably going to own NOAA too in the end of it if they, for a while, if they get what they want for a while. They'll end up making us pay for the services that used to be free. The sunset is coming on the Trump tax cuts. The top 10% corporations' profits increased by 2/3 since he signed that. It's peaking. They need more money, and they're killing people to get it. People literally cast their votes with blood, premeditated murder intention. It literally happened because people are dying right now. The farmers, they screwed themselves. They voted for people to go without food, some of them. It's disturbing. And I want to say a little more about that. When I lived with my father, when I was younger, I was their slave to his new family. They would have a jar for their granola and a jar for my granola. And I would drink powdered milk, and they would get real milk. My milk sat in a fucking file cabinet in the fucking garden, in the fucking weather. And that was my milk, but they got real milk. Somehow, jars have lids on them. I don't know how the hell roach legs would get in their shit, because they would take their shit and dump it in my granola, and I'd have roach legs floating in my already shitty powdered milk from sitting in the garden in the weather while they drank real milk. So I stopped fucking eating. I went without breakfast for a long time. I would put that shit in my dad had benches that he built, and it had a little crack in it about that big, and I'd sit there when they weren't looking and sit there and shovel that shit down in there. It was about this wide, this tall, and this going forward. It was that fucking deep, full fucking granola, rotten as fuck before he smelled it. He was going crazy smelling it. But the thing is, I wouldn't eat that shit. No. I ate Chinese plum trees off of a very fruitful Chinese plum tree at the bus stop. I snuck it. I would eat part of my lunch, and I would take Chinese plums to school with me. I would ration part of my lunch in the morning, add Chinese plums to it, and eat the rest of my lunch at school with Chinese plums. And you know what's interesting about it? There's people who would see, oh, he's been eating his lunch, and tell the fucking teacher, you know, I'm fucking rationing out my food because they're giving me what I just said. And you fuckers want to take food out of fucking people's mouths over and over through the fucking years, you fucking jackasses. You know, my principal forced me to eat. I was so fucking skinny. She forced me to eat, paid for my lunch before HRS got involved and took me the fuck out of there. You want to take fucking food out of kids' mouths. That's my story. To add a little more to that story, I weeded every fucking weed in the garden. They didn't do shit in that yard. Nothing. But you know what? they would ask for a tomato and they would get a tomato. They could even walk in there and just take one and be like, oh, sorry, Mom. I wouldn't get shit. And if I took one, they noticed. And I'd get a fucking slap in the face and called a thief. But they could have whatever the fuck they wanted. So fuck you taking food away from kids, you fucking pieces of shit. I hope everyone fucking catches on fire, you fucking assholes.